I'm your host Slim bin Mohammed Rafi, and here is my YouTube channel Zamir Universal. In this particular vlog, I want to bring it up to the notice of everybody is the Indian aggression, and this all started with the terrorist attack on the tourist, with all I think evidence which is present at the moment is indicating that it was a false flag operation and it was carefully planned by Narendra Modi, the RSS ideology and Hindutva that Hindustan or India is only for Indians. And whenever the popularity of Narendra Modi or this particular party goes down, they come up with some sort of a false flag operation, and with that, to divide and rule, and particularly anti-Muslim sentiment, they get their popularity back. So it's a political survival for Narendra Modi, and for last 16 years, 5 times this man has fooled the poor Indians and got himself elected somehow or the other. This is the first time that he has to, lost in a number of states, and he had to have the other parties to make a government in the center. So with this little note, I'm just going to go ahead and give you some current things on there, so that all that life which has been created about the Indo-Pakistan war and these Indus, the treaty, which was a tripartite, which was between 3 parties, the World Bank, India and Pakistan, and India, as usual, is holding that in abeyance, and they always are looking for something to subdue or put it the other way, punish the weaker neighbors. They've done that with Nepal, with landlocked country, and they've done that with Sri Lanka, they've done that with Bangladesh, and they have done that with the chicken neck 7 states, and they've been continuously doing that. And for the last 75 years, there is not a single, I think, barbaric act or atrocity which they have not inflicted upon the occupied part of the Kashmir in the valley. And this is where, in the tourist spot, the Pahalgam, where it occurred, and you can see the extent of cruelty and how these people are doing. Their own veteran says that this was all decided by these people. The ex-army chief who was fired because he exposed the Narendra Modi flag false operation, and he was asked to leave the Indian services. I think 600 to 800 years of Muslim rule in India. Look at what the Muslims left for them, all the roads, all the monuments, all the parks, all the good education system, the highest GDP in during Akbar the Great's time, and peace of 600 different Maharajas fighting with each other like dogs. They kept these Indians, beasts and animals together, and the Rajputs fighting the others, the Dalits fighting the untouchables, and absolutely no tolerance, and worshipping multiple idols who could not speak to them, burning their own, the loved ones, and throwing them to the front of the crocodiles in Ganges River, going out for open defecation, eating with the rodents and rats together. The poverty stricken, more than 75 to 80% of the Indians are poor. And when you look at them, how they have treated the poor, how they have treated the farmers, how they treated the Sikhs, how they have treated the Muslims, the Dalits, you wonder that the small people, hardly 20 to 25,000 people have money in India, whether they are Dwani or Danani, whatever they are, Birlas or Tatas or Mittals, they're all friends of, the people who now nearly 100 years, the organization intolerant of Hindutva, the RSS, and the present person who has been there almost 20 years, Narendra Modi, the butcher of Gujarat. Now, could you live like that? It's just like the way Netanyahu, right in the middle of the Middle East, is trying to live with the wars and invasions and hatred, killing. You cannot. And in my this vlog, there is a message of peace for everybody. If they and the world wants peace, my say that stop talking about the winners and the losers. In the war, there are no winners. So if you talk about the Israel or Palestinians, they are losers, or the Israelis, they won and they have the greatest technology. The greater have 35, they have 18 F-16, and they have the cluster bombs, and they have all sorts of money and the technology. You wonder that what happens, that spur of a moment someone else bypasses you, and this is exactly what happened in India-Pakistan war. Technologically, you can see the China, bridging all the bridges over the oceans, and the largest dam in the world, and see what the Himalayas and the mountains, and look at the steel structure on which they have multiple motorways and highways, and look at the manufacturing capacity of the Chinese people. And in the Holy Quran, they travel to China if you have to for the sake of learning. So it was prophesied to you 1445, 47 years ago, telling you that for this pursuit of knowledge, go anywhere. And there was no other country mentioned in the divine book of Muslims, the Holy Quran. The glorious Quran mentioned that if you have to travel to China, travel there and learn. So no, see what happened in the Indo-Pakistan war. It's their Chinese technology which jammed the latest rifle and destroyed the S-400. And now if I claims and counterclaims, and I give you the love and hatred of retired Major Bravo and the Swami, you can see them spitting. I am not going to be part of that. I am not going to be member of that, who propagates hatred and the distance and division. I want to give a message to both my Indian as well as the Pakistanis, peace-loving people.
अमेरिका के अखबारों में मजाक उड़ रहा है। अमेरिका के अखबारों में लगातार कहा जा रहा है हिंदुस्तान के इतने जंगी जहाज गिर गए, इतने राफेल गिर गए, ये गिर गए। आपके पास जवाब नहीं है। आप कह रहे हैं नो कमेंट। अरे बताइए जनता को, अगर राफेल गिरा है तो भी बताइए और नहीं गिरा है तो भी बताइए। नो कमेंट क्या कमेंट होता है? अब तो जंग खत्म हो गई। जंग तो शुरू ही नहीं हुई थी लेकिन खत्म हो गई। अब तो बताइए जनता को कि सच्चाई क्या है। नहीं, झूठ बोल बोलकर लोगों के अंदर नफरत भर भर के आपने अपनी सत्ता इतने साल तक बचा के रखी है और अब इस मौके पर आप खामोश हैं। हिंदुस्तान का मुसलमान आपके साथ खड़ा हुआ, विपक्ष आपके साथ खड़ा हुआ। राहुल गांधी ने कहा हम सरकार के साथ खड़े हैं, हमारे जैसे तमाम लोग सरकार के साथ खड़े हुए, लेकिन हुजूर आप ही देश के साथ खड़े नहीं हो पाए। और जब आज के वक्त का इतिहास लिखा जाएगा तो इसको दर्ज किया जाएगा। आपका 56 इंच, आपकी सारी थ्योरी, आपकी सारी बड़ी बड़ी बातें झूठी साबित हुई हैं। और अब हालत यह है कि जो आपके भक्त हैं वो भी सोच रहे हैं कि यार कैसा यह हमारा भगवान था जो अपनी एक भी बात पर खरा नहीं उतरा। आपके लिए विपक्ष मजाक है। या तो आप मन की बात करेंगे या संसद में तब बोलेंगे जब आपके बात बोलने वाला कोई ना हो, फालतू की बातें करेंगे, ताली बजवा लेंगे। और या चुनाव में खड़े होकर बोलेंगे, कभी बोलेंगे पंचर बनाता है, कभी बोलेंगे कपड़े देखकर पहचान लो, कभी राहुल गांधी का मजाक उड़ाएंगे, कभी अखिलेश यादव का मजाक उड़ाएंगे। इससे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं कर सकते। एक बार इस पूरी लड़ाई में आपने सामने आकर एक शब्द बोलने की हिम्मत नहीं की। आपको याद दिला दूं, राहुल गांधी उसी संसद में थे और उसी संसद में उन्होंने आपसे कहा था, 2022 में कहा था कि ये जो आप नीति बना रहे हैं ये आप चीन को भी दुश्मन बना लेंगे, चीन और पाकिस्तान एक साथ हो जाएंगे, हमारे लिए 2 फ्रंट खुलने का खतरा रहेगा जो बेहद खतरनाक होगा। और उस समय मजाक उड़ाया गया था। राहुल गांधी ने ड्रोन के बारे में बात की थी कि ड्रोन नई टेक्नोलॉजी है। यूक्रेन रशिया के युद्ध में ड्रोन सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट रोल निभा रहा है, मजाक उड़ा दिया गया। इजराइल के साथ समझौता हो रहा था, इजराइल के हथियार आ रहे थे, अडानी जी का ठप्पा लग रहा था और सारा खेल चल रहा था। मजाक उड़ता है राहुल गांधी का। कोविड पे बोले तो मजाक उड़ाया, सब सही साबित हुआ। पाकिस्तान चीन पर राहुल गांधी ने बोला, सब सही साबित हुआ। ड्रोन पर राहुल गांधी ने बोला, सब सही साबित हुआ। मैं कभी नहीं कहता मुझे किसी पार्टी से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, लेकिन आज तो लगता है कि अगर आपकी जगह राहुल गांधी उस कुर्सी पर बैठे होते तो शायद सारे सही फैसले लिए गए होते। और आज जिस तरह भारत की जनता के रूप में हमें बहुत अजीब सा लग रहा है, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, वो वाली स्थिति शुरू नहीं होती, वो वाली स्थिति आती नहीं। सवालों के जवाब आप देंगे नहीं, वरना आपने इस सवाल का जवाब दिया होता कि बैसरण घाटी जहां पर 2500 लोग थे, वहां पर सुरक्षा क्यों नहीं थी। सवालों का जवाब आप देंगे नहीं, वरना आपने बताया होता कि जिन 4 आतंकवादियों की फोटो जारी की है, हम मान लेते हैं वही 4 थे, कहां हैं वो। आपने तो आज तक यह भी नहीं बताया कि पुलवामा में इतना आरडीएक्स कहां से आया। आज तक पुलवामा की जांच में क्या निकला किसी को नहीं पता है। बातें बातें बातें, दूसरों का मजाक। मैं होता तो यह कर देता। एक पुराना वीडियो इनका चल रहा है बंबई की घटना के बाद का, उसमें कहते हैं काहे की बातचीत, कांग्रेस तो लव लेटर लिख रही है, सरकार लव लेटर लिख रही है। मैं होता तो यह कर देता, अरे लव लेटर में कम से कम लिखा हुआ दर्ज तो होता है रिकॉर्ड के लिए कि कल को उसका उल्लंघन ना हो सके। आप तो फ्लाइंग किस भेज रहे हैं महाराज, जिसका कोई रिकॉर्ड ही नहीं है। देश की जनता को पता ही नहीं है कि सीज फायर में क्या तय हुआ, क्या शर्तें हैं। देश को पता ही नहीं है कि यह सीज फायर कैसे किया गया, क्यों किया गया। देश को पता ही नहीं है कि सीज फायर होने के तुरंत बाद
False claims circulating online on news outlets in India stoked the fires of an information battle. They claimed that Pakistan's Karachi port had been hit by India. But this was false. The port hadn't been hit. Today, our BBC colleagues on the ground visited the port and shared this video with us confirming it wasn't damaged. But last night on social media, many celebrated and said this was the beginning of war. And many accounts started sharing old footage online claiming to show the strike on the port. For example, this video claims to show the aftermath of the port being hit, but it's actually footage of the aftermath of a plane crash in Philadelphia earlier this year. And this, again, looks dramatic, but this photo here is actually from the Gulf War in 1991. And this video, claiming to show drone footage of the aftermath of a strike, but it's actually the aftermath of a blast on an Iranian port on the 26th of April. And these false claims weren't just on social media. They were shared by mainstream media in India too. For example, this was a headline on one of those mainstream media outlets, which said Pakistan's Karachi port completely destroyed. But an account called Karachi Port Trust Official posted this, calling the claims completely false and baseless. A few hours later, the same account posted this claim that the port suffered heavy damage after strikes by India. That post has since
एक गरीब देश जो दुनिया को चौंका रहा है, पाकिस्तान दुनिया का वह अनोखा देश है जो दिखाता कुछ है और करता कुछ और। हमारे भारतीय मीडिया, जिसे आमतौर पर गोदी मीडिया कहा जाता है, पाकिस्तान को एक गरीब और असफल राष्ट्र के रूप में पेश करता है। हमें बताया जाता है कि पाकिस्तान में लोगों के पास खाने को रोटी नहीं है, अर्थव्यवस्था तबाह है और देश दिवालिया होने के कगार पर है। लेकिन दूसरी ओर संयुक्त राष्ट्र की रिपोर्टें कुछ और कहानी बयां करती हैं। उनके अनुसार पाकिस्तान में प्रति व्यक्ति भोजन की उपलब्धता भारत से बेहतर है। पाकिस्तान में लोग बेहतर खाते हैं और जीवन स्तर कई मामलों में भारत से आगे है। अब सवाल यह उठता है कि अगर पाकिस्तान वाकई में उतना गरीब है जितना भारतीय मीडिया दिखाता है, तो फिर वह कैसे सबसे आधुनिक मिसाइल और हथियार बना रहा है? कैसे वह उन 5 देशों में शामिल हो चुका है जो खुद 5th जनरेशन लड़ाकू विमान बना रहे हैं? कैसे वह उन 3 देशों में से एक है जो 5th जनरेशन एयर पावर को सक्रिय रूप से इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं? अगर यही गरीबी है तो हम तो भगवान से प्रार्थना करेंगे कि हमारे भारत को भी ऐसा गरीब देश बना दे। कम से कम हमारा तेजस विमान तो पूरा बन जाएगा। सच्चाई यह है कि पाकिस्तान ने न केवल अपनी वायुसेना को दुनिया की सबसे खतरनाक हवाई ताकतों में शामिल कर लिया है, बल्कि भारत को चारों ओर से रणनीतिक चुनौतियों में भी घेर लिया है। और हमारे देश में यहाँ 5 किलो गेहूं के लिए लोग लाइनों में खड़े रहते हैं, जबकि हमारा टैक्स का पैसा एक आउटडेटेड राफेल विमान में डूबा दिया गया, जिसका आज की 5th जनरेशन युद्ध में कोई विशेष स्थान नहीं है। दुर्भाग्यवश हमारे अपने सेवानिवृत्त जनरल जैसे कि जनरल बख्शी, जिन्होंने देश के लिए बलिदान दिए हैं, अब वही पुराना नैरेटिव फैला रहे हैं। पाकिस्तान को नीचा दिखाकर खुद को सच्चा देशभक्त साबित करना चाहते हैं। सवाल ये है क्या उन्हें कहीं से रिश्वत मिल रही है? वरना 5th जनरेशन के युग में पुराने जमाने के विमानों की वकालत क्यों? अब समय आ गया है कि हम सच्चाई को पहचानें। पाकिस्तान एक ऐसी हकीकत बन चुका है जिसे नकारा नहीं जा सकता। एक ऐसा गरीब देश जो अपनी ताकत से पूरी दुनिया को चौंका रहा है। पाकिस्तान वह देश है जिसने दुश्मनों के साए में पलकर विकास किया है, जहां हर दूसरा दिन सीमाई तनाव से जुड़ा होता है, जहां हर साल आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़नी पड़ती है और जहां वैश्विक प्रतिबंध भी लगते रहे हैं। लेकिन इस सब के बावजूद वह देश आज न केवल अपनी संप्रभुता पर कायम है, बल्कि अपनी रक्षा उद्योग को भी मजबूत कर रहा है। क्या यह सब किसी गरीब देश की निशानी है? क्या एक गरीब देश खुद फिजा में दुश्मन के विमान गिरा सकता है? याद है ना 27 फरवरी 2019, जब पाकिस्तान ने न केवल भारतीय विमान मार गिराए बल्कि एक पायलट को जीवित गिरफ्तार भी किया। वह दिन भारत के मीडिया ने कभी दिल से नहीं भुलाया, इसीलिए आज भी वे पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ जहरीला प्रचार करते हैं। और बात सिर्फ रक्षा की नहीं, पाकिस्तान ने रक्षा के साथ साथ साइबर युद्ध, सैटेलाइट तकनीक और यहाँ तक कि अंतरिक्ष में भी अपनी उपस्थिति का एहसास दिलाया है। भारत जिस देश को पीछे समझता रहा, आज वही पाकिस्तान वैश्विक रक्षा प्रदर्शनियों में अपने ड्रोन, मिसाइल सिस्टम और युद्ध तकनीक के साथ शामिल होता है। CPEC, चाइना पाकिस्तान इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर जैसे परियोजनाएं न केवल अर्थव्यवस्था बल्कि भू राजनीति में भी पाकिस्तान को नई ताकत दे रही हैं। चीन जैसे वैश्विक महाशक्ति का विश्वास पाकिस्तान पर है, न कि भारत पर। तो क्या यह सच में गरीबी है? एक तरफ हम हैं जहां एक किसान को अपनी उपज का सही मूल्य नहीं मिलता, एक छात्र को पढ़ाई के बाद नौकरी नहीं मिलती और एक सैनिक को आधुनिक हथियार नहीं मिलते। दूसरी तरफ पाकिस्तान है जो युद्ध के लिहाज से आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर बढ़ रहा है। अगर वह गरीब है तो फिर हम क्या हैं? भारतीय जनता को धोखा क्यों दिया जा रहा है? हमारा मीडिया हमें भावनात्मक फिल्में दिखाकर पाकिस्तान को दुश्मन और खुद को पीड़ित बनाकर केवल वोट बैंक हासिल करना चाहता है। हमें गरीबों की समस्याओं से हटाकर दुश्मन की ओर ध्यान केंद्रित किया जाता है, ताकि हम सवाल न करें कि हमारे अस्पतालों में दवाइयाँ क्यों नहीं है, हमारे बच्चों को शिक्षा क्यों।
After days of high-intensity combat and unprecedented escalation, the war has finally come to a halt. India has announced a ceasefire, but not without paying a steep price. In the skies, the Indian Air Force suffered significant losses. Among the most shocking was the destruction of 3 Rafale fighter jets, India's crown jewel in modern air combat. These jets, deployed for precision strikes deep inside enemy territory, were tracked and neutralized during intense aerial engagements and missile ambushes. Alongside the Rafales, one Su-30 MKI, a frontline multi-role aircraft, was downed by Pakistan's surface-to-air missiles. A MiG-29, operating in the northern sector, was lost during a low-altitude interception attempt. India also lost a Mirage 2000, reportedly during a deep penetration mission across hostile airspace. Even unmanned systems weren't spared. Israeli Heron drones, used for surveillance and target acquisition, were intercepted and destroyed by advanced counter-drone systems. But the damage went far beyond the skies. On the ground, India's military infrastructure was hit hard by Pakistan's calculated retaliation. Using Fateh-1 and Fateh-2 tactical ballistic missiles, Pakistan targeted critical military installations across multiple sectors. High-resolution footage and satellite analysis reveal extensive damage to forward air bases, ammunition depots, fuel reserves, and even brigade headquarters in frontline zones. Multiple command and control centers were either destroyed or rendered inoperable, crippling communication and coordination during key hours of the conflict. In a surprising turn of events, Pakistan's JF-17 Thunder, equipped with precision-guided munitions, reportedly neutralized components of India's S-400 air defense system, a platform considered virtually impenetrable. This strike not only demonstrated strategic depth, but also exposed vulnerabilities in India's layered air defense network. The ceasefire may have stopped the bullets, but it couldn't reverse the damage. India's war machine has taken a hit, not just in terms of equipment and infrastructure, but also in morale and military prestige. Artillery units and forward bases lie in ruins, while repair efforts across the affected regions are now underway. This conflict has redrawn strategic lines in South Asia. With key assets lost and air superiority challenged, India now faces not just rebuilding, but redefining its defense doctrine for future conflicts. Pakistan, on the other hand, has showcased the evolution of its retaliatory capabilities, from drones and missiles to precision targeting of critical infrastructure. Pakistan faces the same consequences. India launched air strikes, missile launches, drone attacks, and much more, resulting in the casualties of children. In retaliation, Pakistan waited, locking the military targets from which these attacks were conducted inside India. In 5 o'clock in the morning, Pakistan's military launched its retaliation answer to India. Now, the guns may be silent.
Yeah, I was just talking to a source who was literally in the room where it happened, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I was told, played a massive role in bringing about this ceasefire, a ceasefire that on multiple times today and even yesterday, because it was in the works yesterday, perhaps over the last 48 hours, as we've been reporting, Pakistan was sort of on a military pause to give a window for diplomacy. What I understand from this source is that that was blown out of the window early this morning when India attacked 3 air bases, one of them here in the capital, just on the outskirts of the capital. That, according to the source, Pakistan responded with a relentless, a massive barrage of missiles and rockets, they say, Pakistan says, into Indian military facilities, bases inside India, air bases, weapon storage, and along that disputed line of control in Kashmir against military bases there. They say that this, from the Pakistan perspective, their communications, how they were communicating with Secretary Rubio, that really put India on the back foot. It didn't know what had happened. India, according to Pakistan, reached out to Secretary Rubio, reached out to the Saudis, reached out to the Turks, reached out to others to find a diplomatic off-ramp, got engaged after that onslaught in diplomacy, but telling the mediators that they were going to go on a pause on the Indian side. And then, according to Pakistan, that didn't happen. There was another exchange of rocket fire. That happened several times during the day today. And it was only in the last couple of hours before this ceasefire came into effect, just about an hour or so ago, that there was enough of a pause to call it and say that this was real, that enough diplomacy and leverage had been put on both sides to get them to stop here. Now, the key issue for Pakistan going forward is water. India has still said it's cut off the water from those 3 vital rivers from the mountains in Kashmir, vital to Pakistan, existential to Pakistan. I said, what about that? And the source said, look, this is a ceasefire. Everything works out from there. But from the Pakistan perspective, they've been up all night. From the Indian perspective, they've been up all night. There was a lot of tiredness. There was a sense that they just wanted to get this done. Otherwise, in the words of this source, it would have just spiraled into something much worse. It was now or never, if you will. It was going to get a whole lot worse. So I think a sense of relief here, but a sense of whiplash too, for what the country has been through in the past few days.
Nick Robertson, thank you for the report from Islamabad. Now we go to India. In New Delhi is CNN's Matthew Chance. Matthew?
Coming in from a third party.
It's a clear case of overstepping. It is not the job of the President of the United States to make a claim when we haven't even agreed that this is a matter which requires his intervention. And, with the greatest of respect to the American President, he has no idea about the ground situation. He has no idea about what's happening here. Till a few days back, he said that this is not for him to look into. And now he's congratulating both countries trying to be a global peacemaker. And I think this is beyond him. I strongly object to the fact that the US president is saying that he has sorted out the conversation between 2 countries. I think President Trump does not understand the importance of difference between back-channel talks or informal diplomacy or clandestine diplomacy or overt diplomacy. Somebody should think this is typical Trump overreach? This is typical Trump overreach. This is typical Trump overreach at a time when he does not have a mandate to do so. And I think it becomes incumbent right now for the government to start the press conference, which we were promised at 5:30. If this was a calibrated announcement, which I do not know anything about, then really we will hear, we will go, Republic will go by what our Prime Minister says. Republic will go by what the Foreign Secretary of India says and what the Indian forces says. It is wrong for Donald Trump to go out and make an announcement, but this is typical.
And the fact that
Typical
he's saying,
Donald
and the
Trump
fact, Arnav, he's saying that overnight negotiations, while we had the worst of fighting between the two
Where
sides.
are the negotiations overnight? Where are the negotiations overnight? Who has mandated him to have those negotiations overnight? Last night we were pummeling them back after they tried to send their drones. Last night there were people in Firozpur who were, who were injured. Last night there were 36 places where they tried to do incursions, and we have hit them back. And a ceasefire is not a phone call. It is not like one of those things that happen on WhatsApp. I mean, Donald Trump should get real about the situation. I will completely go by what my government says.
And Trump has failed for the 5 months with Russia and Ukraine.
But that's not the point.
He has announced 4 times.
Trump is too eager. Trump is jumping the gun, and I do not believe that this can be the kind of announcement that can be taken seriously as an announcement. And that's why I came on air to say this, that ऐसा नहीं होता है कि आप informally announce करें. You take a role for yourself, and 2 days back...
And Americans seem to be heavily invested because Secretary Marco Rubio is now posting, saying over the last 48 hours, Vice President Vance said, I
don't buy this, and we will finish this. Let us not forget here, with the greatest of respect, that the United States of America was the country which threatened to send the 7th Fleet in 13 days. And therefore, we are an independent country. And he's trying to equalize this. How on earth can Trump equalize between what has happened in Pahalgam and what has happened thereafter?
It's a clear case of overreach.
Clear overstretch. I'm sorry I'm going to have to go. You can take this forward. But we are going to be on conversation with our channels in the government.
Absolutely.
Elijah, Pakistan says that it shot down 5 Indian jets, something which India has not denied. How do you read that?
Well, even the French did not really deny the number of jets down, because we're talking about Rafale, and it is quite embarrassing for the French and for the Indian. There is a confirmation from France about at least 1 jet, but a game changer for the Chinese, for the Pakistani, and for the Indian to see how ill-performed are the French jets. The performance of the Chinese jet is much superior, and that has a huge impact on the selling of the Rafale and the selling of the Chinese jet. This is one confirmation is available. Tell us that indeed the Chinese jet have really overcome and overpowered the Rafale in the air of the Indian Air Force.
You look at that, you look at your culture, look at your dress, look at your language, look at your, all those things like the music you enjoy, the folk songs, the Bharat Shah, you look at the Bulle Shah, look at those, the Nusrat Fateh Ali, look at the Lata Mangeshkar, Noor Jahan, and you look at the cricket, look at hockey, look at, even kabaddi. Look at those so many things you do together, eat together, you talk about biryani, you talk about non-veg or veg. But, you have lived for centuries together, and I say an appeal to both Pakistan and India, and both to Palestine and Israel, that live in peace. Let's have 2 states over there. You came there as refugees, so accept your status there and live in peace if you want to. Get the bloody settlements out of that place and put them in the sky rise, and vacate those farms, all those orchards, all those olive trees, the grapes trees, all those same, restore the old names of Palestine and live in peace. Surrounded by all the Arabs and Muslims, you have plenty to live in peace. Life is short, so don't deprive your people. And the few politicians who, for the sake of their built-in hatred, you punish the rest of the population. Exactly the same thing is happening in India, and I prove it to you that the people who've been throwing all kinds of insults on Pakistan or vice versa on India from the Pakistani side, they are now talking about that the truth is the only one which prevails, and it has prevailed. And with these few words, giving you this picture of that damage did happen on both sides, and there are no losers and there are no winners. With this message of peace, I close.
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर